The sun of the distant colony world burned weak and pale in the sky, casting long shadows across the dry ground. The wind carried fine dust that seemed to never settle, filling the air with a strange silence. Far from the busy streets of the settlement, in a quiet gully where the earth was loose and broken, a small alien girl lay buried beneath a thin cover of dirt. Her breaths were shallow, her small chest rising only with effort. She had not chosen this place. She had been left here. The soil pressed against her tiny frame, and every movement felt heavier than the last. Yet her mind remained awake. Her people had long carried the gift of sending thoughts beyond words, a voice not of sound but of feeling. Weak though she was, the girl reached for that gift. She reached into the still air with her mind, whispering a single plea that carried no language, only emotion, fear, loneliness, and the desperate wish to be found. Far across the settlement, a human worked alone inside a dim outpost station. His name was Marcus, a technician assigned to maintain the scattered sensors that watched the barren land. His days were often filled with routine, wires and panels and machines that needed constant attention. Nothing in his life had prepared him for what he suddenly felt. At first it was no more than a faint echo inside his mind, a ripple that broke his focus. He straightened and looked around the room as if expecting someone to be there. The station was empty, the low hum of machines steady as always. He shook his head and returned to his work, telling himself that long hours and poor sleep were playing tricks on him. But the feeling came again. This time clearer. Not words, not even a voice he could describe, but a soft pulse of emotion, fragile and pleading. He froze, his tools slipping from his hands as the strange sensation washed over him. It was not like hearing. It was like someone tugging at his very thoughts. Marcus sat down slowly, his heart beating faster than he wanted to admit. He closed his eyes, unsure why, and listened not with ears but with something deeper. The echo returned. Fear. Weakness. A cry for help. It was faint, like a candle in the dark, yet it was there. He rubbed his face with his hands. "What is this?" he whispered, but the empty room gave no answer. Curiosity, mixed with a sense of responsibility, began to grow in him. Marcus had lived on this colony long enough to know that strange things were possible here. The planet had ruins older than human settlement, whispers of alien history that most colonists ignored. He had never cared much about legends, but this was different. This was not a story. This was reaching him, right now, inside his mind. The sensation came once more, weaker this time, as though fading. Without thinking, Marcus stood and grabbed his portable scanner. He stepped outside, the dry wind pushing against him. The settlement lights were distant behind him, while the rocky land stretched endlessly ahead. He turned slowly, waiting. The feeling nudged him again, faint but certain, pulling him toward the south. Each step he took seemed to strengthen the strange connection. His scanner showed nothing unusual, no signals, no life forms, but the echo inside him did not lie. Someone, somewhere, was calling for help. As he crossed the rocky ground, Marcus felt a deep unease mix with determination. He had no proof of what he was following, no explanation to give if asked, but he knew he could not ignore it. A plea like this was not something imagined. It carried too much raw need, too much truth. He pressed on, the pale sun sliding lower in the sky, shadows stretching farther with each passing moment. The land grew rough, small gullies cutting across his path. The wind shifted, carrying a dry hiss of dust across the surface. Through it all, the voice, if it could be called a voice, kept guiding him. By the time he reached the edge of the gully, Marcus was breathing hard, yet he felt closer. The pull in his mind was stronger here, as if the ground itself was whispering. He climbed down carefully, his boots sliding against loose stones. His eyes scanned the uneven earth. There was nothing to see but dirt, scattered rocks, and silence. And yet, deep inside, Marcus knew. Something or someone was beneath this ground. Marcus stood at the bottom of the gully, his boots sinking into the loose soil. The evening light painted the rocky walls in pale orange, and the wind whispered across the surface above. His scanner gave nothing. No heat source, no energy reading, no sign of life. Yet the strange pull in his mind grew stronger, steady like a quiet heartbeat. He knelt down and pressed his hand against the ground. At first, he felt only the dry roughness of stone and dirt. Then, the echo touched him again. A wave of weakness, as if someone was running out of breath. It was not sound, yet it filled him with urgency. He pulled his hand back and stared at the soil. Somewhere beneath this earth, someone was alive. Marcus switched the scanner to a deeper mode. Lines of green light scanned the ground, searching for density shifts. The screen flickered with static, but then a faint irregular patch appeared. It was not large, perhaps no more than the size of a small child. His breath caught as the thought took shape. He was not imagining this. Someone was truly buried here. His hands moved quickly now, digging at the soil with both urgency and care. The dirt was loose, sliding away with each motion. His heart pounded as he worked, each handful bringing him closer. The echo inside his mind grew fainter, like a voice at the edge of silence, and fear gripped him. If he was too late, then all this would end in failure. At last, his fingers brushed against something not stone. He cleared the soil faster, revealing the faint outline of a small form. Dust clung to fragile skin, pale with weakness. The child's chest moved in shallow rhythm, each breath thin and uneven. Her eyes were half closed, yet faint light shimmered in them as if her spirit still reached outward. Marcus froze for a moment, staring. The child was no human. Her features were soft, her skin faintly marked with natural patterns that looked almost like flowing lines of silver. Her head was smaller, her body lighter than any human child of the same age. Even in her frailty, she gave off an air of something rare, something not often seen. The girl's lips moved faintly, yet no sound came out. Instead, Marcus felt it inside him again. Not words, but feelings. Relief. Hope. Weakness. She had called, and he had come. Without hesitation, Marcus lifted her carefully into his arms. She was light, almost weightless, as if hunger and exhaustion had taken nearly everything from her. He brushed dirt from her face and checked her breathing. Shallow, but present. She was alive, but only barely. The scanner clipped at his belt beeped faintly as it adjusted, confirming what he already knew. A living being was in his arms. A being his equipment could not have found on its own. Only her strange voice in his mind had guided him. Marcus stood, holding her close. He looked up at the fading sky and felt the wind tug at his jacket. Questions rushed through him. Who was this child? Why had she been buried here? Who had left her to such a fate? The colony records spoke of alien families living under human law, but nothing in those records spoke of cruelty like this. The girl stirred faintly, her hand brushing against his arm. A soft pulse of thought entered his mind once more. Not clear, but full of trust. He felt her cling to him not with strength but with belief that he would not leave her. Marcus's jaw tightened. He did not know what rules he was breaking or what trouble this might bring, but he knew one thing. Leaving her here was not an option. She had reached out across silence, and he had answered. That bond could not be ignored. He adjusted his grip, wrapping her in the fabric of his jacket to shield her from the chill air. Then he began the climb out of the gully, each step heavy but firm. The settlement lights glimmered in the distance, promising safety and questions alike. As he walked, the weight of the moment pressed on him. He had uncovered more than just a child. He had uncovered a mystery that could not be explained by scanners or reports. She was alive because he had listened, because he had trusted something beyond reason. And in her faint glow, in the fragile voice that had reached his mind, Marcus sensed that this was only the beginning. Marcus carried the alien girl through the rocky path with steady steps. The night air grew colder as the sun dipped below the horizon, and the settlement lights flickered in the distance like scattered stars. He kept his jacket wrapped tightly around her, protecting her from the chill. Every few minutes he glanced down, worried that her breathing might fail, but her chest still rose and fell in weak rhythm. When he reached the outskirts of the colony, Marcus slowed his pace. He avoided the main gates where guards might ask questions. Instead, he slipped through a side entrance used by workers returning from long shifts. The scanners at the entrance beeped faintly, but they were not set to detect small life signs with such weakness. He moved quickly through the dim streets until he reached his quarters at the far end of the settlement. His room was simple, filled with tools, half-repaired devices, and the hum of old machines. He laid the girl gently on his narrow bunk and adjusted the lights so they glowed softly instead of glaring white. She stirred slightly, her hand twitching as though trying to hold onto something unseen. Marcus opened the small supply box he kept for emergencies. He pulled out water, a nutrient pack, and a med scanner. He had never cared for a child before, let alone one from another species, but instinct guided him. He pressed the scanner over her chest. The results confused him. Her pulse was faint but steady. Her lungs were struggling but not failing. The readings showed patterns he had never seen in human biology, glowing lines of energy that moved along her veins like streams of light. The girl's eyes opened slowly. They glimmered faintly in the dim room, reflecting the glow of her inner energy. She looked at Marcus, not with fear but with quiet recognition. He felt her thoughts brush against his mind once again. This time they were softer, less desperate. Gratitude. Safety. Trust. Marcus knelt beside her. "You can hear me, can't you?" he said quietly, though he knew she might not understand his words. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came. Instead, a faint image entered his mind, a memory, perhaps. A flash of sky, hands pushing her down, then darkness. His chest tightened as he realized what it meant. She had not fallen by accident. She had been placed beneath the soil on purpose. His hands clenched into fists. Someone had wanted this child gone. But why? The girl's small fingers reached for his sleeve, clutching weakly. Another pulse of thought entered his mind. Not words, but feelings again. Fear mixed with loneliness, wrapped around a tiny spark of hope. He placed his hand gently over hers. "You're safe now," he whispered, not sure if she could fully understand but hoping she could feel his intent. He gave her a sip of water. She drank slowly, her throat trembling with the effort, then closed her eyes again. The faint glow of her skin brightened for a moment, as though the simple act of kindness had restored a small part of her strength. Marcus sat back and studied her features. He remembered the colony reports he had schemed long ago about alien families living in quiet corners of the settlement. Most lived under human law, working side by side, but some kept to themselves. He had never paid much attention. Now he wondered. Could this child belong to one of those families? And if so, who would bury her alive? The thought of reporting her to the authorities crossed his mind. That was the logical step. But when he imagined her being taken from him, her faint voice crying again for someone to hear, he felt a sharp resistance. If those who should have protected her had already abandoned her, what would happen if she fell into the wrong hands again? The girl opened her eyes once more. This time her gaze was steady. A faint light pulsed from her skin, not bright but alive. Marcus realized with growing certainty that she was not an ordinary child. She belonged to a rare empathic species he had heard about only in passing, a people thought to be dwindling, their gifts nearly lost. If she was truly one of them, then her voice, the strange echo in his mind, was proof of a gift that most had believed gone forever. He sat in silence, the weight of discovery settling heavily on his shoulders. He had found more than just a child. He had uncovered a truth that could change how humans and aliens understood each other. And now that she was in his care, her survival depended on the choices he made. As the colony outside prepared to sleep, Marcus remained awake beside her. The girl rested at last, her breathing steadier, her glow a quiet reminder of her strength. He could not explain why fate had chosen him to hear her, but he knew one thing. He would not let her voice be silenced again. The alien girl slept in Marcus's quarters through the long night. Her breathing was steady now, though shallow, and her faint glow pulsed like the rhythm of a fragile star. Marcus stayed awake in the chair beside her, tools and half-finished machines pushed aside on the table. His eyes moved from the scanner results to the child and back again, trying to make sense of what he had uncovered. Logic told him to report her at once. The colony had laws. Any discovery of alien life, especially a minor, was supposed to be registered with the council. They would arrange care, investigate the circumstances, and make a ruling. That was the rule. But rules had no answer for the images he had felt in his mind, hands pushing her down, the fear of being abandoned. If the very people who should have protected her had chosen instead to bury her alive, could he truly trust the system to protect her now? The girl stirred slightly, as if her thoughts reached into his debate. Marcus leaned closer. Her lips parted, and though no sound came, a wave of emotion washed into him. Fear at the idea of being sent back. Relief at his presence. A silent plea not to be left alone again. Marcus pressed his hand gently against hers. "I will not let them hurt you," he said softly, not knowing if she could understand his words but certain she could feel his intent. At dawn he opened the window shutters. The settlement stirred to life, lights brightening across the streets, workers heading toward their shifts. He knew questions would soon be asked. People talked. Missing children, especially among alien families, were noticed. If the girl's stepmother went to the council pretending concern, Marcus might suddenly find himself accused of hiding her. He set out food and water. The girl sat up weakly, her thin frame trembling with the effort, but her eyes were clearer than before. She drank and ate slowly. Between each sip and bite, she looked at Marcus, her gaze filled with quiet trust. That trust weighed on him more than any law. As the morning passed, Marcus began to think of what to do next. Reporting her risked returning her to those who had betrayed her. Hiding her risked punishment for himself. But standing idle was no choice at all. He remembered why he had come to this colony years ago. It had been a chance to start fresh, a chance to live with purpose. Yet until now, his purpose had been wires and machines. Now, for the first time, he felt something greater. The girl reached toward him, her fingers brushing the sleeve of his jacket. A pulse entered his mind again, stronger this time. It was an image, not of fear, but of light. A picture of him standing between her and the shadow of another figure. She saw him as a protector. The image was not perfect, but it was clear enough to move him. Marcus stood and paced the small room. If I keep you here, I put both of us at risk. But if I let them take you, I put your life at risk. What do I do? His voice was low, more to himself than to her. The answer came not from words, but from his own heart. He already knew. He could not abandon her. She had reached out with the last of her strength, and he had answered. That bond was unbreakable. He returned to her side and knelt. You stay with me, he said firmly. Whatever comes, I will protect you. The girl leaned against him, her small head resting on his arm. For the first time since he had found her, he felt a spark of peace in her thoughts. She trusted him completely. Marcus knew the days ahead would not be easy. The council would investigate. The stepmother would demand answers. Questions of law, property, and bloodline would be raised. But none of that mattered compared to the quiet pulse of life sitting before him. Humanity was not measured in systems or laws. It was measured in compassion, in the willingness to hear a small voice when no one else would listen. He adjusted the blanket around her shoulders and looked toward the window where the pale morning light shone. He was a simple technician, not a leader, not a warrior. Yet at this moment, he held in his hands a responsibility far greater than any machine he had ever repaired. And he had already made his choice. The settlement grew busy as the day passed. Voices filled the streets, machines rumbled, and workers moved in steady lines. In the middle of this noise, Marcus stayed in his quarters with the alien girl. He kept the blinds closed and the lights dim. She sat quietly on his bunk, wrapped in the blanket, her silver-marked skin faintly glowing in the shadows. Her strength was returning, but her body was still thin and weak. Marcus gave her water and food in small amounts. Each time she ate, her glow brightened a little. She spoke no words, but her eyes followed him everywhere. From time to time he felt her thoughts brush his mind, soft pulses of emotion that told him she was afraid of being discovered. By mid-afternoon Marcus knew the colony would start talking. A child was missing. Families gossiped, neighbors whispered, and news traveled fast in a place where everyone knew each other. He could not hide her forever. The thought filled him with unease, and he kept glancing at the door as though expecting a knock. That knock came sooner than he wished. A sharp rap echoed through the room. Marcus froze. The girl tensed, her glow dimming as fear spread through her thoughts. He placed a calming hand on her shoulder, then stood to open the door. On the other side stood a woman with sharp features, dressed in dark fabric that swept across her shoulders like folded wings. Her eyes were cold and calculating. Marcus recognized her from passing glimpses in the colony square. She was the girl's stepmother. "I am searching for my child," the woman said in a smooth voice. "She went missing yesterday. Have you seen anything unusual?" Marcus kept his expression neutral. "No, I have not," he said. His words were steady, though his heart beat fast. The woman tilted her head, studying him. Her eyes seemed to search past him into the room, as though she sensed something. "She is small," she continued. "Weak, quiet. but she is valuable to me. If you find her, you must tell me at once. The council will reward anyone who helps. Marcus felt the girl's fear spike behind him. The pulse in his mind was sharp now, almost painful. She was terrified of this woman. That terror confirmed what Marcus already suspected. The stepmother did not want her out of love. She wanted her for reasons far darker, perhaps inheritance, perhaps power, perhaps simply control. He forced himself to remain calm. I will let you know, he said. But I have not seen her. The woman's lips curved into a thin smile. Good, she said softly. I hope you are telling the truth. It would be most unfortunate if someone chose to hide her. With that, she turned and walked away, her cloak brushing against the dusty ground. Marcus closed the door quickly, his hands clenched into fists. The girl was shaking. She pressed against him, her thoughts reaching his mind in a flood of fear. He knelt beside her. It is all right, he said firmly. I will not let her take you. Her eyes shimmered with tears, though none fell. She leaned into him, her tiny hand clutching his sleeve. He could feel the raw relief in her thoughts, the trust that bound her to him. Marcus sat with her for a long time after the visit, his mind heavy with questions. Why would the stepmother bury her? What did she stand to gain? And how far would she go to take the girl back? One truth became clear. The stepmother would not stop searching. She had already lied to the council, pretending to be worried, when in truth she wished the child gone. If the council believed her words, they might send patrols, and then Marcus's secret would be revealed. He looked at the girl, who had finally drifted into uneasy sleep. Her glow flickered softly, like a fragile lantern in the dark. Marcus realized that protecting her was no longer just a choice. It was a fight he had already entered. He sat in silence, listening to the hum of his machines. Outside, the settlement continued its busy rhythm, unaware of the small war of trust and betrayal growing behind his closed door. The stepmother's shadow had already fallen across his life, and Marcus knew the days ahead would test both his courage and his humanity. The alien girl sat on Marcus's bunk, her small body wrapped in the blanket he had given her. She looked fragile, but her eyes glimmered with a quiet light that seemed stronger than before. Over the past few days, she had grown a little stronger. Her chest rose and fell more steadily, and her faint glow pulsed with life instead of weakness. Marcus watched her carefully, amazed at how quickly she adapted to safety. He noticed that her mind pulsed with more than fear now. There were flashes of memory, images that reached out to him like tiny sparks of light. One moment, he felt the emptiness of the soil that had buried her. Another, he felt the warmth of a moment long ago, perhaps a happier memory she barely remembered. He realized her telepathic gift was growing stronger with every day she spent safe and cared for. Marcus crouched beside her. You are stronger than you know, he said softly. You made it this far. You are safe now. The girl's thoughts brushed his mind again. This time they were clearer, showing him glimpses of her life before the stepmother had buried her. He saw a small village far across another planet, alien creatures moving among strange plants and glowing skies. He saw the moment when her stepmother's cruelty had begun. The images filled him with anger and determination. Her voice, the pulse that had first called him to the gully, now carried more than fear. It carried hope. She reached out to him not for help alone but for understanding. Marcus felt her emotion deeply, as though her need for connection went beyond simple survival. You have a gift, Marcus said, placing his hand gently over hers. It is why I found you. It is why you are here. But it is also why they will want to take you. You are special. The girl blinked slowly. He could feel her mind absorbing his words, the small spark of trust growing brighter. She was beginning to understand that not all beings wished her harm, that some could care without reason or reward. That realization strengthened her, and Marcus could feel the difference immediately. Her glow brightened, steady and soft, like the light of a small star. Marcus began to speak of the stepmother. He did not need to hide anything now. She wants to control you, he said gently. She will lie and say she cares, but she does not. You are safe with me. I will not let her take you. The girl pressed closer to him, and her thoughts pulsed faster, mixing gratitude and relief with a cautious fear. She had been abandoned, betrayed by someone she was supposed to trust. Now she had a protector, someone who had chosen to hear her when no one else would. Marcus knew that this gift, this voice that echoed through minds, could be more than just survival. It could connect humans and aliens in ways few had ever imagined. If used wisely, it could show understanding, empathy, and courage that could unite different worlds. The realization filled him with awe and responsibility. He looked at her closely. Her glow was steady, her small body more relaxed. Marcus knew that in time, her abilities would grow stronger, but for now she needed rest, care, and protection. Every action he took, every choice, could shape her future. He would not fail her. Outside, the settlement moved through its busy rhythm, unaware of the quiet bond forming inside Marcus's quarters. No one knew that a rare empathic child, thought almost lost, was learning to trust a human. No one knew that a single voice had reached across fear and silence to create a connection that could change the lives of many. Marcus sat beside her quietly as she slept. The glow from her skin painted soft shadows on the walls. He realized that humanity was not measured only by technology or strength, but by the courage to listen, to respond, and to protect when it mattered most. He had answered her call when no one else would, and now he would guard her with everything he had. The alien girl, for her part, rested peacefully for the first time in days. Her pulse carried a soft, steady rhythm, echoing through the room like a small promise. A promise that, despite cruelty and fear, hope and compassion could prevail. And in that quiet moment, Marcus understood that the girl's voice had done more than survive, it had taught him what it truly meant to be human. The morning sun spilled pale light across the settlement, glinting off metallic rooftops and casting long shadows along the streets. Marcus sat beside the alien girl, watching her stir awake. Her glow was steady, brighter than it had been the day he found her. She moved slowly, her small hands reaching out to touch the blanket wrapped around her. He smiled, a warmth filling his chest. Today was different. Marcus could sense it. The stepmother's shadow still hovered over them, her lies likely already reaching the council. They would send people to search, to claim the girl, to remove her from the safety he had provided. But Marcus had made his choice. He would not hand her over, no matter what the law demanded. He helped her to her feet, steadying her tiny body. She leaned on him slightly, and he could feel her confidence growing with each careful step. Her gift pulsed faintly in his mind, a soft signal of trust and gratitude. He knew she was ready to face what came next, but he had to prepare as well. Marcus stepped outside his quarters with the girl in his arms. The streets of the settlement were beginning to hum with activity. People moved past, unaware of the quiet drama unfolding. He walked to the council building, the center of law and order in the colony. Inside, he could already feel the tension in the air, the silent whispers of curiosity and judgment. The council members were waiting, their faces a mix of surprise and concern as Marcus entered. Behind them, the stepmother stood, her posture perfect, her eyes sharp. She did not smile. She did not need to. Her confidence spoke volumes. "I found her," Marcus said calmly, setting the girl down gently on the floor in front of the council. "She is safe. She is not harmed. She is under my care, and I will not hand her over to someone who has already tried to hurt her." The stepmother's eyes narrowed. "This child is my family. She belongs to me. You cannot keep her from her rightful place." Marcus shook his head. "Her life belongs to her. She does not belong to cruelty. I will not allow her to be hurt again." The alien girl's glow pulsed softly, and Marcus felt her thoughts reach his mind. Not words, but emotion. Strength. Courage. Hope. She had called him once from the edge of death, and now her presence here was a reminder that compassion mattered more than fear or law. The council looked uneasy. No one had expected this display of loyalty and courage. The stepmother spoke again, trying to sway them, but her words carried no truth. Marcus remained firm, meeting the council members' eyes. He spoke of the girl's gift, of her telepathic voice, of the danger she had faced. He spoke of trust, of humanity, and of the responsibility of protecting those who cannot protect themselves. For a long moment, the room was silent. Then the council members began to confer quietly. Marcus could see the change in their expressions. They had heard him, and more importantly, they had felt the truth in his words. The stepmother's calm confidence faltered as doubt crept in. Finally, the council spokesperson stepped forward. "This child will remain under the care of Marcus," she said firmly. "Evidence shows she was endangered, and the guardian has acted in her best interest. Any attempt to harm or remove her without cause will not be tolerated." The stepmother stiffened but said nothing. Marcus looked down at the girl, who had remained quiet, her glow bright and steady. She reached out and touched his arm lightly, a gesture of trust and connection. He smiled. "You are safe now," he whispered. Outside the council chambers, the sun shone brighter. The girl's pulse of light seemed to mirror the warmth around them. Marcus realized that this day had proven more than laws or rules. It had proven that humanity was not measured in authority, strength, or fear, but in the courage to listen, to act, and to protect. One voice, faint and fragile, had reached across silence and he had answered. The alien girl lifted her head and looked at Marcus. Her thoughts brushed against his mind, carrying one simple truth. Gratitude. Trust. A future free from fear. Marcus held her hand gently. "We'll face the world together," he said softly. "You are never alone again." As they left the council chambers side by side, Marcus felt a quiet pride, not in himself, but in what they had accomplished together. The colony had witnessed a choice of compassion over cruelty, courage over fear. And the alien girl, once buried beneath the soil and forgotten, now glowed with life and hope, a living reminder that humanity answered the call of those who needed it most. For the first time in days, both human and alien felt the truth of trust, the power of compassion, and the strength of a single voice being heard.